I'm so happy to be able to spotlight you for our ABA newsletter. You're our first person. So thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you practice in your practice area?
All right. So no, thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Dain Souza. I'm a partner at Bass Dameron in Miami. My practice areas involve bankruptcy and distressed deals and litigation, business disputes and investigations, including D&O investigations, internal investigations, and corporate compliance. I have a national and international practice, but I'm admitted to practice in both Delaware and Florida, and frequently handle matters in both states.
Okay, great. How long have you been an ABA Business Bankruptcy Committee member?
So longer than I can remember. I first became involved in helping prepare at more of the ground level, right, and helping prepare materials when I was an associate at a firm called Skadden Arps in Delaware. Over time, I became more involved in coordinating presentations and moderating panels. And eventually in 2017, I was invited to join committee leadership and become a vice chair of the Partnerships and Limited Liability Entities and Bankruptcy Subcommittee. Uh, I became the co-chair of that, I think, in 2020, and we're always looking for new members and looking to engage with existing members. So everyone's welcome to join in.
Wonderful. What was your most memorable ABA BBC moment?
So this is a tough one, right? Because there's so many. I've been involved for a long time, but I think the ability to moderate panels is always exciting. It's a great opportunity to build our brand, to engage with the community, and show off kind of our practice, right? Most recently, I moderated a panel that includes some of my closest former colleagues, including Fez Ahmad and Doug Herman. And it's those types of opportunities to connect both nationally and locally that I really relish. The other thing I really have loved is the opportunity to connect to meet old and new faces, and to meet them at each meeting, particularly at our committee leadership meetings.
Jane, where are you from originally?
So originally I'm from Miami, not far away from the office where I'm currently sitting.
Okay.
And then I ended up practicing in Delaware for a bit. I went to school in Chicago. I met some great mentors there that led me over to Delaware. I clerked in the Delaware Bankruptcy Court, and then eventually
For
uh, for Chris Sanchi,
Okay.
for Judge Sanchi.
Okay. Did you do law school where in Chicago or?
Yes, so I went to law school at the University of Chicago, and that's where for me, that's where I got involved more in bankruptcy and started developing an interest in it.
What did you study undergrad?
What did I study in undergrad? So in undergrad, I was actually pre-med, and I dabbled in economics and business law.
Okay. Quite a diverse background. What has been your favorite bankruptcy or restructuring related project or client to date, and why?
So probably if I had to pick one, all of them have been really meaningful to me. If I had to pick one, it's probably one that sticks out is the Quicksilver bankruptcy. Now it's known as Board Riders. In Miami, we grew up kind of, as kids, we grew up relishing kind of and always involved in water sports and surfing and all that kind of thing. So it was kind of the opportunity to work with a company that I grew up with. And do so in kind of really a really complex deal, and ultimately it was one of the earliest successful Chapter 11s of an international retail business.
What year was that?
That was probably 2016.
Okay. Yeah. What was your role in that case?
Um, so in Quicksilver, I was involved from the filing all the way through first days, pretty much anything.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
and so it ultimately filed in Delaware. It was an interesting case.
that's awesome. Tell us something most others don't know about you.
So something most people don't know about me. So I grew up near the water, and I think um, that kind of lends to my prior answer, right? So I grew up near the water, and I was always attracted to anything ocean related. So much so that I once volunteered to work when I was young. I once volunteered to work at an aquarium store, and I think I can name more corals and tropical saltwater fish than anyone I know.
That's pretty cool. You surf?
I I I try to surf now. I did surf when I was younger.
Uh-huh. I want to try to do it. I've never done it. I want to do it for sure. What are your hobbies?
So I try to stay active and I enjoy the outdoor activities, particularly water and other sports. Two that are pretty significant to me are golf and tennis.
Okay.
I try to play tennis at least once a week now. It's how I trick myself into exercising.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think like through those two, through golf and tennis, I've made and strengthened some of my closest friends and business colleagues. Um, and then another one, my wife and I both like to travel, and she recently got her scuba license. So we're always looking now for opportunities to scuba dive.
I love what you said about how your hobbies have helped you strengthen your business relationships, which is interesting question. It's like the things that you love to do you do them with your like colleagues or your clients? And I think it's very it's most people are like, yeah, you golf together, but it's true, like you truly do bond with people when you do anything like that. That's fun. Um,
Yes. So golf has helped me. Funny enough, golf is one of those things that they tell you that playing golf is an important way to meet people. For me, it was even as a junior attorney, I was good at I was decent at golf, right? And so if there was like an ABA event that involved golfing, I was able to go along for the ride, right?
yeah,
Because I could play sufficiently well that you could take me on the course and I could hit a couple balls and do
yeah,
okay. But like doing that is how I met a lot of people in the ABA, right?
yeah,
It's how I met a lot of and you've kind of forged those relationships both with your more senior attorneys and your partners, right? You're sitting in the golf cart and doing something different than just working through an agreement. And
yeah.
it's that those kind of relationships, those kind of like intangibles that I think golf and tennis and other activities that you do with your coworkers, colleagues, and other attorneys kind of help you
Yeah,
forge those relationships in that network.
absolutely. Interesting. One of my hobbies is portrait photography. It's not golf, but I take portraits of my colleagues, of my clients, like for their business and whatever, and it super solidifies me. So really to anyone that I ever photograph, but it's a different kind of hobby, but it's the same thing where I'm strengthening those ties. But anyway,
Right, you've forged that connection in a different way.
yeah, absolutely. That we could do a whole series on that. I have two more questions. Who was the best mentor you've ever had and why?
So that's a difficult one, right? Because I've been lucky in my life to have worked really hard, but also to have been taken under the wing of some tremendous mentors and attorneys. And so in my view, like much of the success that I have or that I've been able to accomplish, I can trace back to a few significant mentors in my life, right? My path in law began in New York in an internship for a tremendous now retired judge. But even after I made that choice to pursue a profession in law, my path was influenced by tremendous mentors along the way. as an example, I never planned to be a litigator, which is now an important part of my practice,
Yeah.
nor did I ever plan or probably know much about bankruptcy and restructuring practice before law school. Um, in fact, when I went into law school, when I started, I thought it was just going to be a deal attorney, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I was interested in law and econ, and it's one of the reasons that I attended the University of Chicago. Um, and there I was lucky enough to have a tremendous professor that led me to develop an interest in bankruptcy, because it was an area that was highly intertwined with economics and game theory, and those kind of more theoretical things that interest me. And so through that, and I had also began to develop kind of an interest in litigation, doing moot court and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So tying that all together, I learned that bankruptcy was one of the few niche practices that incorporated all deals, litigation, and economics. And so that's how I got involved in bankruptcy. And candidly, I've never had to make the decision whether I want to be a litigator or a deal attorney, because I get to do it all, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the great things about bankruptcy. So that ultimately led me to another mentor, which we talked about, which was the Honorable Christopher S. Sanchi. So Judge Sanchi taught a seminar at Chicago involving Chapter 11 practice. And so I ended up doing really well in the course, and ultimately served as a law clerk for him in Delaware, where some of the, and you know, right, some of the largest restructuring matters were overseen. For me, it was kind of fascinating, and I lived a high-paced and sophisticated practice, and so I ended up staying in Delaware. And so after working for Judge Sanchi, I got a tremendous opportunity to stay in Delaware, work with Skadden's restructuring practice, and where I worked on some of the most tremendous bankruptcy deal and litigation matters. It's also where I became involved in the ABA, and ultimately where I met my wife, who, by the way, is also from Miami.
Okay.
And so we met actually while working up there in the Delaware area. So my wife and I eventually moved back to Miami, where we're both from. But I was still participating in the ABA, and eventually got to know Jeff Bast, who's now my partner at Bast Amron. So Jeff is also involved in committee leadership in the ABA. So the way I think about it is in many ways like my professional and I guess personal life can be traced to a number of these meaningful mentors that kind of led me along the way, right? First, the judge that led me to the practice of law. Second, the professor that led me to bankruptcy and away from just thinking I wanted to be a deal attorney. And then third is the judge who gave me a chance and a shot to learn more in Delaware.
Yeah, I love that. I have a similar story with how I got to bankruptcy too. I didn't take it in law school at all. But now I love the hybrid nature of the practice. And I think once you get in there, you love it. And I love our bankruptcy community too.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is we're one of the last general practitioners, right?
Yeah.
We still do, we litigate, we do deals and we do corporate work. And so it's one of those great areas where we're always busy and we always have a role to play.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to younger members of the ABA Business Bankruptcy Committee?
So thinking it through, I would just say work hard, build your brand, foster meaningful relationships, and don't ever underestimate or downplay even the smallest opportunities to grow and advance your career. Sometimes opportunities come from the least expected places.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much.
No, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.